to start the introduction. So to our panel of recent graduates, we have two graduates from last year, Faith Yi and Shine Peck. Both were members of CORE, so I know them well. And you guys also know them well. We also have John Lee, who's a member of our young adult ministry. You guys have probably seen him around at church. He's the really tall, good-looking guy, so hard to miss. And then we have Joel Jang, who graduated a number of years back, and I know is well beloved by pretty much everyone he's come into contact with. So I'm really happy that they've been that they have the time and opportunity to join us today. And like I said, I'm excited to hear what they have to share with us. So to start us off, I'm just going to go through the four of you and ask you to introduce yourselves. So who are you? When did you graduate? And what do you do now? What are you up to these days? All right. So we'll start with Joel, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I can go first. So hi to everyone who hasn't met me before. My name is Joel. I graduated class of 2019. So it's been about 2 years now since I've graduated. And for me, I've moved back home with my family. So I'm living with my family now. We actually recently moved to LA, closer to K-Town, about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago. So just moved in recently. And yeah, I've currently been working, I'm interning at a small startup for a social media app that's in its beta stage. And we're getting ready to launch. So just been helping with just small things there. So yeah, that's what I've been doing. Should we popcorn or how should we do it?
Yeah, sure. We'll go ahead and popcorn the introductions.
Okay, then Faith, your turn.
Hi, I'm Faith. Most of you guys already know me. I served in CORE for 2 years as InReach CORE my junior year and Praise CORE my senior year. Yeah, so I graduated last year, and since COVID wrecked my graduation and post-grad life, honestly, I haven't been doing much. I'm taking classes at the local community college to just get some early childhood education courses in so I can start teaching in preschools eventually. But for now, I've just been chilling, studying, playing games, etc. Yeah. Shy.
Hello, everyone. Long time no see. If you don't know who I am, I'm happy to meet you. Good on you on trying to check out a church during COVID. I hope it was fruitful. For me, I graduated same year as Faith, so it's been a little less than a year since I graduated. I've been working part-time at a clinic in K-Town, and I'm also taking prereqs to apply. I applied and I'm thinking of further applying to grad school for marriage and family therapy. So yes, excited to talk with you guys today. Popcorn John.
Hey guys, it's a pleasure to be here. I'm John. My graduating class was 2018, but I graduated a year later. Currently, I do research at a biomedical lab on UCSD campus, and I'm in the middle of applying for grad school. So, yeah.
All right, great. Thank you, guys. So we'll just hop right into the questions. And again, everybody, I encourage you to, if you can't prepare with questions or think of one, feel free to put it in the chat or send it to me directly if you want to be anonymous, or ask it in person when we have the time for questions. So I encourage you to think of those things as we proceed. But the first question I want to ask, and this will be open to whoever wants to answer, is this: what has been the most challenging thing in your faith after graduating? What has been kind of the biggest obstacle or burden?
I guess I can go first. I think for me, the hardest thing has just been the lack of accountability. So, since I was down in San Diego for 4 years, I feel like I've kind of, I guess, drifted almost apart from a lot of my friends who are back at the church that I grew up in. And I think it's a little more of that for me, just because a lot of my church friends actually all stayed pretty local. They all stayed at that church and they all went to college nearby. And so they, grew up together for another 4 years while I was out over in San Diego, visiting maybe once or twice a month at most. So I think by the time I came back, it was a lot harder to, fit in again with the church community, as well as just find people to confide in and talk to. And for me, since my church was based in K-Town and I lived over in Orange County, I can't really meet anyone, or it's a lot more of a hassle. It's like an hour, 30 minutes to an hour drive just to, go to church. So I think it was a lot harder to find accountability in that sense. And, with COVID and everyone staying indoors, it's obviously gotten worse. Yeah, I think, I'm not the most social person. I am a very strong introvert. So I usually don't really make the effort to reach out to people first. And so I think that even, that's like a spiral, it just gets worse and worse, where I don't reach out to people, people don't reach out to me, and more. And it's like, next thing I know, I haven't talked to anyone like outside of work in like 2 months, And so I feel like for me, accountability has been like the most difficult thing spiritually.
Thanks, Joel. Anyone else want to take a crack at that one?
Yeah, just to piggyback off of Joel, I think probably the biggest challenge is like the change of lifestyle, because like even if like you don't go work full time, like Joel mentioned, like I think your circle grows smaller, definitely. Like, for many of you, you probably attend like a campus ministry also, so you have also a lot of events during the week to really keep you accountable. When in post-grad, there's not many things holding you up anymore. So it's definitely a challenge, and especially if you're working full time, you have like 8-hour days, like Monday through Friday, and as bad as it sounds, kind of the last thing on your mind is to spend time with God. That's just me being honest. So yeah, it's definitely a challenge to adjust to like the life stage, because you have more priorities, like getting a job and thinking about the future. Parents also become a topic that's more prevalent on your mind. So yeah, I think the adjustment to a different life stage like definitely affects like the spiritual life.
Thanks, Joe. Shine, Faith, Heather, you want to chime in?
I think for me, it's like really different being in like, I think college in particular has like such a good community. Like there's like multiple weekly meetings where you're constantly surrounded by people and doing stuff like related to God. But I think going from having such a strong like it's like I would go out to all the events, right? Just because it was provided to me. And then going from, hanging out with fellow believers like multiple times a week to, being limited to just like church on Sundays. And then my church at home has like, it's really, really small. It's 2 families and doesn't have any like reflection group or anything like that. So the discussion's also very, very limiting. So I think going from, growing so much within a community, I think I had a hard time adjusting to trying to learn what it was like to walk with God alone. So I guess while I had the kind of community growth, I didn't really have the personal growth, or like I didn't really know how to sustain this by myself. Not that I was supposed to sustain it by myself, but just have like a little bit more structure in my own personal walk. But I would say just like that lack of structure kind of was the biggest change and threw me off the most. And it's definitely harder since everything's online as well. So I feel like it was just compounded graduating in COVID. That like all this like kind of the patterns that I was used to got flipped upside down. And that was kind of rough for me.
Thanks, Faye.
I feel like I should say something only because I'm the only person who hasn't shared, but I honestly think like everything that they said before me was like perfectly describes how I'm feeling too. I think a lot of the struggles, when I think about it, are kind of tied into COVID as well, because I didn't really have a home church. I considered Hope my home church because that's where I found God and it's where I built my first church community. So then moving back home, I realized there wasn't a community that had been waiting for me, even if it was like spotty throughout college. So I think just to kind of add to everyone's experiences, I think church hopping amidst COVID as a post-grad has been just really, really challenging. It's really hard to meet people and it's hard to make substantial relationships when the most that I can share with anyone is like one Zoom call a week. But yeah, I think what Faith said is true. It's not like the end of the world, like it's not the worst thing that could ever happen to you in your faith. It's just really, really different. And I think as children of God, we need to continue to seek ways in which we can grow ourselves and kind of like shed off a lot of the support that I felt like I had in undergrad. So yeah.
Thanks, Shine. Thank you, guys. So to kind of shift gears a little bit, it's one thing to hear about, what's difficult, 4 times in a row. But hopefully there have also been things in your life that have been helpful or encouraging to your walk. And so I want to ask you guys, what has been helpful or encouraging to your walk in the past year or a few years that you've been a quote unquote young adult?
It's because we're all struggling still. But to answer the question, definitely like community like is a huge part. Like there is some sort of solidarity when people in the same life stage as you like are struggling through the same thing. And like you guys can share about your struggles together and relate together, but also like you guys are able to encourage each other. And I think that's one of the beauties of like a Christian community. I think for me, like also a big thing is also how the Bible talks about struggling and suffering in our faith, because it makes me assured to know that like this is going to happen. So it doesn't really shock me, and it doesn't hurt as much as like it would if you were to not know that you were going to go through some tough times in your faith. So it's really reassuring to know that even God knows that, like, this is gonna come, but He's gonna take care of it. So, yeah.
For me, I think everyone shared in the first question that the hardest part was losing so much accountability. So I think how I thought to counter it was to kind of like make the quality of like the relationships that I have currently or like still have like higher, if that makes sense. So like before, if it was more like quantity over quality, I feel like I'm trying to make it quality over quantity. So that's like even within like my friend groups, like I you can seek like accountability with them. And I know it's like not always easy to share about like a lot of struggles with like your friends and things like that, but I think come post grad, you lose a lot of those outlets to share in the first place. So you kind of got to work with what you have in the first, with what you have. And then I think also like the church that I'm checking out, I I know like 5 people at the church, like max. But then I committed to joining like a community group, and they call like once a week, and I hated the idea of joining because I hate stuff like that. But I realized it's kind of one of those steps that I had to force myself to take to be able to have even just like a tiny bit of accountability as opposed to just barely streaming services on Sunday. So I think um, yeah, I think like small little relationships that I've been trying to foster have been fruitful in the ways that I didn't expect them to be.
I think similar to Shine, one thing that's been very encouraging has been, people who do check in on me. And I have a friend who's been like texting like every, 2 months or so. They'll like message me randomly out of the blue, like, oh, hey, how you been? Or like if we discuss something, like a month ago, I'd be like, oh, how did that go? And a lot of times it isn't even, about my walk with God. And it's not always about, spiritual things. A lot of times, it's just about work or family. But I think even that, knowing that someone, thinks about me, someone cares enough to reach out has been very encouraging. Yeah, and I think another thing that's also been pretty encouraging has been just talking with like either my parents or older folk that I know. For my parents, my dad is a pastor, and he was a pastor of my old church's college ministry for over 10 years. So he has seen a lot of people go through the very same things that I'm going through. And so just talking to them a lot of times, when I'm feeling down or when I'm struggling with something has been very encouraging. It's not always things, I want to hear, and it's not always, something that will solve my problems per se, but it's always rooted in truth. And it's always been, something that my heart needed at that time. So I think that's been also very encouraging.
Also, Hope in particular, while it has a fantastic support system in college, which I think it also has really good resources for people in that like kind of young adult phase. So I'm currently part of KG, if you guys heard of it, the Koinonia groups, which is like kind of small groups um, for I guess people of like all the ages kind of outside of college, but I mean college students are included as well sometimes. But I think that's been super helpful for me. My group is really interesting in that it's 6 married couples and then me. So it's like really different. Like there's some newer married couples and then there's some like people who have been married for a really long time and have kids my age. But I think like just being able to find that connection and be able to talk about like community and like personal spiritual growth with people who might be in a completely different life stage but also still have wisdom to impart, and we could just discuss about things in general. That's been super nice, been more enlightening, and honestly so encouraging to get to know I guess the body of the church as a whole rather than just the college group. There's also Diana's group. I am in Diana's group. And then also bears and cubs, and I know for men they have lions and cubs, which is just like a discipling thing, which is like the grown-up DT kind of. So my leader, Dina, has also been such a blessing. And we like either just like read a book together, just like how DT kind of is, or we just talk and pray. And I think those two things, resources in particular, have been super encouraging and like help me stay like with the community when all the other community kind of felt like it was falling apart. Yeah.
Thank you guys. But yeah, that's all great perspectives, and I think great reflections on both what's been challenging for you all, but I'm also grateful that Lord has been good to provide those outlets and those moments of encouragement for you all as well. The next question I'd like to ask you guys. I think we all kind of come out of college with expectations of what post-grad will look like. We hear from older people like, oh yeah, like prepare for this, look out for this. But I want to ask you if and also what surprised you, or did you feel unprepared for as you entered post-grad? Is there anything that that you felt like you wish you were equipped with as you were entering post-grad?
I can go first. I actually have two things that I wanted to share about. The first is something I knew or was told. Shut up, Nathan. It was something I was told in undergrad from someone in postgrad. And she told me her biggest regret postgrad was not having taken like a break after graduating. And I like took it in and I was like, oh yeah, like that's such a good idea. Like maybe I'll travel after I graduate. But as many of you guys know, COVID happened right around the time I was graduating. So it kind of, I think it came to a point where me and a lot of my peers, we were thinking to ourselves like, oh, like we can't really do anything anyways. Like we can't really play, like we can't really travel, like we can't take the break anyways. Like let's just like apply to grad school. And I think it was like a general feeling or thought process among like a lot of like people in my age range. But I realized like just because there's a pandemic that doesn't allow me to be able to do the things that I plan for myself, it doesn't mean that I needed any less of a break, if that makes sense. Like even just from like school, like people or all of those things. So I started working, I think like in July after like 1 week of like really like relaxing to myself. And then I've been working ever since. Granted, it was part-time, but it was still like kind of like hustling, I think. And then it's only until like looking back on it now, like today, that I really regret not taking more time for myself and just being able to just like take a breather. Because I think we forget that by the time you graduate college, you've been in school for at least 16 years or more, like depending on when you graduate. And that's like a freaking long time. And I think if you can afford to, like, I just mean like financially, I don't want to sound like ignorant. Like, if you can afford to, I feel like it could benefit you to take time for yourself, take a break, like heal. If you don't know what you want to do with your life, maybe take that time to try to figure out what you want to do with your life, or even build an excitement and like a reason to like want to go back to things. Like I was talking to my friend who went straight to OT school, so she got like no break whatsoever, and it was something she was so passionate about, but she was telling me that she feels so burnt out because she's just constantly been in school. And I feel like you guys and myself, like we shouldn't feel so scared to like fall behind or take that time for ourselves. And then I was gonna go to the second thing, but I think I'm talking for too long, so I'll let other people talk first.
keep going, keep going.
Yeah, Shine, feel free to.
Okay. Okay, I'll try to like speed through this, but I was actually hesitant to share, but I mentioned that I was trying to go to school for marriage and family therapy. And this was like a career change that I had my senior year. So I still graduated with my old major, all of that stuff, like, like really brief nutshell. But I actually like, I changed my career because I felt like this was where God was leading me. And I was like really passionate about it. And I was super confident because I was like, this is where God wants me. Like, I know, or else he wouldn't have made me change my career in the first place. But then I only applied to one grad school, like for the program that I was interested in, and I actually got rejected. But thankfully, like I wasn't so sad. So like, please don't tell me that you feel bad for me, because I don't feel bad for myself. You guys don't have to feel bad for me. But I think something that I was unprepared for was the chance that I would get rejected from grad school. And I think like in our Korean or Asian Christian community, like people are really, really smart and they set really, really high expectations. And me myself, I thought like grad school would be a breeze. Like it was just a given, like this is exactly where God wants me to be. But then actually, I feel like no one ever talks about getting rejected. Like no one, I haven't heard of anyone getting rejected. Everyone around me just happened to be like freaking smart. So I thought like getting into grad school was really easy, but it's not. It's actually a lot harder than you would think. Unlike what a lot of people tend to think. So I think I'm really glad I was rejected in retrospect. Like it helped me understand a lot more of like what I need and kind of what to focus on now. I'm still learning, but the two things that I wish I knew before graduating was to take a break and be okay with taking a break. And if you're thinking about grad school, be okay with being rejected, maybe even before applying, because that's okay too. It just means like, it doesn't mean you're not meant to be what you think God is leading you to be. It just means that it's just not yet, like not then and like there. You just have to maybe like wait it out a little bit, or maybe he'll guide you somewhere else. But yeah, I think that's it. Sorry that went on for so long.
That was great. Thanks, Shine. Anyone else want to answer this question? So for a refresher, what surprised you or what did you feel unprepared for going into post-grad?
I guess I could go. I think for me, it was, I guess, how quickly and how often I would have to make decisions about my future, about my career, you know. So for me, especially for those who don't know me, you guys might not have known, but I was also someone who was, you know, like, I guess, pondering, entertaining the idea of going into seminary. And I was, you know, given the opportunity to do so very soon after I graduated. And it was something that I think, you know, it was something I had always had in the back of my head, but it was nothing I really ever, you know, properly faced and thought through. And so when that, you know, opportunity came, I think I was very unprepared. I was very just taken aback. And I think part of me was very tempted to go for it just because I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have, you know, a set career path in mind at that point. And it's only been a couple months after graduating. So I was still, you know, in that weird zone of I've graduated, but I don't really feel like I graduated. Like my mindset's still that of a college student. And so I think that like 2 weeks to a month I had to make that decision was very difficult. A lot of, you know, praying, a lot of thinking. And, you know, I ended up not going for it. But I think for me, that was the right choice at that point. I don't think I'm kind of like what Justin said, I'm not against it, but at this point, I just didn't think it was something that I had properly, you know, given enough thought and prayer into to make that decision. And so, yeah, that was like one decision that came very quickly, very suddenly after college. And then even after that, just deciding on what to do for my future. The place I'm currently interning now too, like I'm not really doing anything that's related to what I studied. And a lot of times I think while I'm working, I'm also thinking about that, like, why am I here? What am I doing? Like, is this something I even want to do? And so just having to have those thoughts and having to make decisions based on those thoughts almost every single day for me, I think has been something that I didn't think I would have to do. I think growing up, I always thought, oh, after college, I'll get a full-time job somewhere, and then eventually I'll get married and I'll have kids, and then there's a yellow brick road. But after I graduated college, I'm like, where's the road? There is none. And so I think, that was just something very unexpected that I went through.
Thanks, Joel. John or Faith, do you want to answer this question? If not, we can keep going. All right. I want to respect the time that our panelists committed to this panel. So I'm grateful that if you guys can stick around, that you do for a little while more time. But I mean, if you have to go, then we understand that as well. I want to take this time now to open it up for any questions from the current students. Again, either direct questions to individuals on this panel or more general questions just for the group. So does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask?
I have a question to ask. For you guys, like, what advice would you give for like the freshmen and like the sophomores, the people that haven't really gotten like the full college experience? Like, once hopefully it does come back in person, like, what is something that you would encourage them to do, like, to take advantage of?
Go to your lectures. For those who know me, I'm someone who never went to class, never went to lectures, never studied, and I dearly paid for it. My freshman, sophomore year, I was in academic probation multiple times. I failed classes, and a lot of it, I think, especially, I realized this especially my senior year, but a lot of it is you just got to go to class, even if you're not focused 100% of the time, just being there helps you learn so much more. So, just go to your class. I know it's very tempting. Your friends may be like, hey, let's have Bible study, let's go eat, let's, play, but you got to go to class.
Solid advice. Anyone else?
I feel like, especially now, it's really hard because everything's online, but you really get out how much you put in. I don't know what's the best way to word it, but like, if you spend time like going out to events or talking to people or just, showing up, even if it's to lecture, you really take out so much more from the experience. I feel like even if there's like a part where it doesn't feel like there's any payback and it's just like awkward or like whatever. I mean, I'm assuming that because you guys are all here, you guys are at least doing that somewhat. So I'm very proud of you guys for that. But I think honestly, just showing up is like most of what you have to do. So just continue to show up and you will have all these opportunities, given to you just for showing up. So I would say take advantage of that opportunity.
I don't know if there's like a lot of freshmen or sophomores in the call, but I feel like I don't need to say this. Hopefully things will be back to normal functioning while you guys are still in school. So when that does happen, like, go ham, have fun, make memories. go to class if you can. Yeah, if you, depending on what your careers might be. Let's say also I hope this doesn't come off as like insensitive, but I hope that you guys can still find like joy in like your situation right now, even in like, I know how hard, or I don't even know, I can't imagine how hard it must be to come into college during COVID and try to like figure things out during this time. But I hope you know that, you know, the Hope community is really, really strong. I'm sure any of your brothers and sisters will be more than willing to talk it out with you and be there to support you. But I also hope you know that like behind all of this madness and like crazy that's going on in the world is a God that loves you and really truly desires the best for you every single day and every single moment of your life. So as hard and terrible and frustrating as this time might be for you guys, I hope you stay strong and just persevere and have hope. We support you.
Thanks, Shine. John, did you want to take a chance to answer that? If not, we can move on.
Just kind of ditto what everyone else said. I think probably if I could add, like, just, you know, if you're coming into college, like have your fun, like definitely, but also like explore, like, this is more like career advice, I guess, you know, but like just explore what you like, you know, like if you have interests, like don't be afraid to like, you know, like, you know, tease like your curiosity. You know, because like you want, like people say like you won't have another opportunity like college, and I think it's totally true. That doesn't mean like, you know, if you have a bad college experience, like then your life's over, you know, but you know, if you're in college, like definitely like take advantage of the time that you have and just explore who you are, you know, explore like your interests. And you know, I came towards the tail end of like Justin's talk, you know, but you know, he did talk about, you know, like branching into different areas and exploring those things. And, you know, those are kind of the one ways that you know, see God's calling, but also, you know, it allows you to meet more people and have some like really, really good experiences. So, yeah.
Great. We have a question, a couple questions. Sorry, I missed them in the chat. First, from Joyce Han, thoughts on graduating early? I know that none of you did graduate early, but do you guys have opinions?
I think what Shine said earlier about taking a break still applies, though. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
Joyce, do you think you could like narrow the question a little bit? Because like I think there could be a lot of answers to your question. If you can. If you have the financial means, I would recommend staying longer. You know, but I know finances are a huge topic, and like you can't just do this willy-nilly. So if you're able to, like, I think, you know, it's a great opportunity to like spend more time with, you know, your community down here, make some great experiences. So that's, if I was in your shoes, that's what I would do. Yeah.
Thanks, John. And we also have Faith's take as well in the chat. life is so much more than just college, she would leave. So a couple of different perspectives on that. Anyone else want to chime in quickly on this one? We have a couple other questions. If not, let's see. From Gina, if you had a choice post-grad, would you advise us to live with parents or to live alone independently? Especially if you're graduating early.
I would say, I mean, I feel like this is very dependent on your relationship with your parents, and, you know, a lot of other factors. But I think if you can, and, you know, you are on good terms with them, I do think living with them is not, or is a good thing overall. Just like, you know, especially with COVID and stuff nowadays, you know, I think it's hitting home a lot more for a lot of people, and especially me, that, you know, you don't know how much longer you have, you know, with your family. You know, life is unexpected and uncertain at all times, and, you know, tomorrow might be the last day you could ever see or talk to them again. And so I think, you know, it's sad, but it's definitely a reality. And so, you know, even spending just that, you know, little bit more time with them, then you have, you know, I would say about another 60 years to live. And, you know, you don't know how much longer of those years you have with them. So I think, you know, if you can treasure that time you do have with them, I feel like that's something that, you know, I would encourage. But I feel like it is very dependent on your very unique situation with your parents.
Thanks, Joel.
To add on what Joel said, I agree with everything you said. I think time with your parents, like whether or not you have like the best relationship, is really precious, and postgrad is a time and opportunity to be able to like build any sort of relationship that you've had, and kind of come back as like this independent adult who's like seen more of life, and you can kind of like relate more to them. At least that's how I saw it. But I think just like my personal take, like, because I think it is like case by case. I would love to live by myself if I had the financial means to do so. And this isn't because I don't love living with like at home with my family. It's just that I got really used to like the independence and the freedom that I had living outside of my home in San Diego. And then I think coming back home and then kind of living under someone else's roof and like someone else's house does take some adjustment. And I think it's with the combination of COVID, it's like a bit unfortunate as well, since my mom is like on the older side and she's like more at risk. It's like, again, like very case by case. So I think if I had the means, and just given like my personal desire and enjoyment of um, living my own, I would have definitely done it. But again, it's case by case, just my 2 cents.
Okay. We'll go to Sam's question. And let's see. We'll do up to one more after Sam's question. So if you have a question, like put it in the chat now, because we're running short on time. But Sam asks, thoughts on pursuing a career unconventional to what's considered secure, financially stable, traditional? And if you did deal with this particular, you know, situation with your parents, how did you deal with parents that don't directly / necessarily support what you want to do / have grown a passion for?
I think for the second part of that question, at least, it definitely something I've had. It's a conversation I've had with my parents, where they would ask me, I guess, like, oh, why aren't you doing a job that's related to, what you studied in college? And I think for me, I guess the most important thing was just being honest with them, that, it may be what I studied, but, it's not something I'm 100% sure of that I want to pursue. And, what I studied at college versus what the field is actually like is very different. And so I'm not sure if that's, if that field is what I want to go into, let's say. So I think just being honest with them, I think, and showing that, it's not something you just had like a quick change of mind all of a sudden, like, oh, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, like, it's not that, but it's something that you've really put thought into and that you've, definitely been struggling with too. I think if you're honest and upfront with that, I feel like parents would usually want to respect your opinion. I don't know. I feel like this is also very dependent on, what kind of parents you have. I know some parents aren't as supportive as others. And for thoughts on pursuing a career unconventional to so for my current company I'm at, my CEO is actually a YouTuber, or he was a YouTuber for a long time. And that was his, he was a musician and a YouTuber. And then he recently decided to, start this new app. And so I think he's definitely gone on a road that's very unconventional. Back when he started, YouTuber wasn't even a real thing. Like, this was before, they even started paying people and stuff. So I think you never know for sure what is going to be, so-called stable or traditional. And the world is changing at a very quick pace. So I think more important than, being, I guess, secure or financially stable at all times is definitely waking up every morning and being excited to work. I feel like you can tell when people, are excited by what they do, by both the quality of what they make as well as just their attitude when they're working. And I feel like that's just, yeah, it's a lot. It usually gives like a much better result in the end. And obviously not all of us can do what we want to do for a living. But I think if it is something that you really are serious about and it's something that you really want to pursue, I think making like a roadmap, maybe showing, writing out steps like, this is how I'm going to achieve this, and until that point, maybe I'll do this on the side. Maybe I'll work, at Starbucks to make money so I can live while I, pursue this particular field or this path. Especially when it comes to, I think, parents, just showing that, you have a plan in mind can help alleviate a lot of their worries. Yeah, so I feel like for me, that's something I would try.
I can kind of answer this question because my housemate is an aspiring musician, and knowing you, Sam, I'm pretty sure that's probably what you're going for too. So I think what I see my housemate doing is a really good idea. So he works full time. It doesn't have to be anything like you particularly enjoy. I mean, it can be if you can find it, But I think your parents probably will be concerned for like a stable job, and what that means is like you will get your wages for like the hours that you put in. For like a musician, like your wages depend on like how many people look at your songs, how many people listen to them, and that's dependent upon them. So I think what they mean by stable is like you get paid for what you put in, and when you're coming out of college, I think you have a bit of time to be more risky, and maybe dive deep into like making music or working in unconventional job. But I mean, sometime later down the road, like you're gonna have to like start thinking about backups, right? because you have to make sure you have to cover all your bases, right? I think that's the best way, you know, you can plan for this. So, you know, looking for jobs that you can do, you know, maybe work full time or even do part time, while also like working on your craft or you know, your unconventional job. You know, I think that's the best way to do it, and that might mean you have to put in that much more work, right? Because now you're working 2 jobs. But I think in order to you know, both pursue your passions, but also give yourself a safety net, I think, you know, those are the things you might have to do. So yeah, and I definitely like what Joel said. You know, yeah, stream Caleb, yeah. But yeah, what Joel said about, you know, making a plan, I think that's a really great idea. And I think, you know, having something concrete instead of, you know, having just an idea swim around your head, I think that's definitely the way to go.
Thanks, John. Okay, so for the sake of time, we're gonna end it there. But I did want to check, anybody on the panel have any last thoughts or things that they would like to share before we wrap up? No pressure.
You guys are all doing great. Keep it up. You'll get there. I know you guys are all giving it your best. So just don't forget to remind yourself of that too.
Thanks, Shine. Always encouraging. All right. Anyone else? Okay. So with that, I just want to thank the 4 of you again for taking the time to to share with us, for your honesty, your genuine thoughts. Thank you for staying longer than I initially said. I would like you to stay. Thank you for your generosity. And to all of you who participated, I hope you take the opportunity to thank them for their time. But also, if you reach out to them if you have questions, specifically even about what they do, or want some advice about something maybe that they said. I know that each of them would be more than willing to spend some time with you on that. So with that, thank you all for participating. Thank you again to our panel. And with that, what we're going to be doing now is transitioning into some games led by InReach. And Simon will take over. So thank you again, everyone, for participating in both seminars.